I believe success is a journey, not a destination. And I think many times people view success as a point, especially if you play sports like, I win this game. At the end of the day, if you follow biblical principles, success is a life that is lived well for the Lord. Many people actually never get to the point of figuring out what their purpose is. And if you don't know what your purpose is, you won't know what success is.
How do you define success? Is it about achieving goals or looking polished and impressive on the outside, or having a certain level of influence? Hi, I'm Patient. I'm staff of Malaysia Campus Crusade for Christ. Today we are honored to have our friends Roshan Tilan here with us to share about why success can become an idol. Yeah, Roshan, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah. So maybe you can briefly introduce yourself, about your background.
Sure.
And I think the most important is your mission and vision. Yeah.
My name is Roshan. I actually ended up getting a scholarship to go to the US when I was young, and I ended up working for a company called General Electric. At that time, the biggest company in the land. But I had many jobs in the US, Europe. Finally came back to Asia to run a couple of businesses here. And when I came back here, I realized that, initially I thought my purpose and my mission was really about, success in terms of career and so on and so forth. But when I came back here, I realized that there were a lot of Bahasa speaking Christians. And so, one of the early things that we did was to establish a Bahasa church to support, especially the Sabah Sarawakians who were coming down in Kelana Jaya. And as God led, one thing led to another. It started, we built a Christian content business in Bahasa called Wawasan Penabur to provide content, whether it's text or a printed content and digital content, and things sort of led to a number of things. Today I run a small social enterprise called Leadernomics, where we also do leadership development, both to companies and also to organizations and NGOs.
Wow. It's a different kind of experiences. And God had led you until right now. And
when I was young, when I got baptized, my very close friend is a guy called Chi Leong. Today is a Dr. Goh Chi Leong, and he runs Help University. But he gave me when I got baptized, he stole his father's book. I think he stole it because it looks like an old book. And he wrote there, "Congratulations on baptism." And he wrote a quote from Helen Keller: "Life is either a daring adventure or nothing." And I remember that quote because I took it to heart. I said, God, I prayed to God at that time. I said, God, I want my life to be a daring adventure. I don't want it to be, because it says, Helen Keller said, life is either a daring adventure or nothing. So I said, hey, I don't want nothing, I want something. So let's have a daring adventure. And I said, I want a daring adventure with you or Christ. So it's interesting, the different adventures God takes you through.
Wow. Thank you for taking the courage. I think Wawasan Penabur have been beneficial to a lot of churches, especially Bahasa speaking, to help them to grow deeper journey with Christ. So maybe first of all, we want to hear from Roshan that how you view success.
So to me, I believe success is a journey, right, not a destination. And I think many times people view success as a point. Especially if you play sports, like, I win this game. And I do. I play very competitive football still. And when you win a game, you feel good. But guess what? Next weekend, you have to win again. You have to win again. It's like, it can become a drug. It can become addictive. And it can become an idol, right? Because if you don't win, then you go down. You become a different person. The definition of success is very fleeting to say. Because if you think about it, at the end of the day, if you follow biblical principles, success is a life that is lived well for the Lord, right? And ultimately, God wants you to glorify Him in your life, in your deeds, and so on and so forth. And what does that mean? So I think the root of success is understanding your purpose. Because some are called, and I say that in business too. I always tell different business leaders, I said each business got a different calling, right? Some business, for you success means becoming $100 million business. Some other business, success means capturing market share and so on and so forth. But everybody has an end point that's different, but they also have a starting point that's different. Correct? So when a starting point and ending point for everybody is different, your journey is going to be different.
Yes.
And so each person will have their own definition of success. And especially if you're a person who believes in God and believes that God has a destination for you, has a plan for you, and has a purpose for you, then you have to understand what is your purpose. right? So and to me, it's a journey of searching, like, right? To me, I know why God put me in GE, put me travel all over. Then come back, do Bahasa work. Don't speak very good Bahasa. Have to pick it up. 99 I came back. I had to pick Bahasa from scratch. I mean, okay lah. I mean, many years away, came back, learn Bahasa, and then start talking in Bahasa. And then, for the last 25 years or so, I've been in a Bahasa church, right? So I have to preach in Bahasa, I have to talk in Bahasa. And he's like, hey, and I do crazy stuff, like, because I mean, you say funny words, right? Like when you try to say malu, which is shame, you sometimes accidentally say kemaluan, which is a wrong. So you but you learn and you see God puts you in a purpose, just like Moses, right? His plan was for him to understand the world that worked at that time, which was 40 years in Egypt, to understand how Pharaoh thinks, how that works. But then he needed 40 years to find his purpose, which is, your purpose is to bring the Israelites out. And then the next 40 years is about building it. So sometimes I think God puts our life to say, okay, here is about preparing you for your purpose. Then it's about you understanding what your purpose is. And then it's about you fulfilling your purpose. And many people actually never get to the point of figuring out what their purpose is. And so they wander around. And if you don't know what your purpose is, you won't know what success is. Because success is about achieving your purpose. It's about Moses saying, hey, I'm taking the Israelites to the promised land. Okay, that's success, right? And I think for each of us, we have different definitions of success.
I think this is very key, right? I think when you say success is to understanding your purpose and live out your purpose and fulfill the purpose that God has given to you. I think this is a great motivation to motivate you continue to move on. I think you share about you have been experiencing some failures. I think it's a process also, right? To be success in your life. So how does personal success and achievement? Because our topic right now is about idol, right? You have also mentioned that it could be success when someone pursuing success could be addicted to that. So how this personal success and achievement lead to sense of that we ourselves are God.
Usually people define achievement as success lah. Oh, look at this guy Jensen Huang. Wow, he took Nvidia to 2 trillion. But obviously there's a long journey that we went through in the past, right? So we always look at the milestone of achievement as success. And so what happens is that if achievement continues to be about success, we start to, and achievement usually most people will start to attribute it to ourselves, our own abilities, because we have to work hard, we have to do it, we have to take the initiative, we have to drive this, we have to study, we have to. So if you start looking at achievement, and it's very interesting, Christian parents start with their kids an achievement bias. Even in the family time, we start molding our kids about achievement. Okay, I mean, last time I remember was studies. My time was like, oh, study. Today it's like you look at some of the parents, sports, and like, oh, you must do this, you must enter this competition, you must maths and this and that. And so we start teaching our kids that achievement is success lah. And so we mold this thing about achievement. But when is achievement enough? Because the guy who makes their first billion say, I want 2 billion, I want this. And every time there's another milestone. There's always another milestone. And so what happens is, as time comes on, we start to look at achievement as success. But more importantly is we start to look at achievement as success, and we start to attribute to our own abilities. Because we are enabling that success to happen. And we forget that actually it's about God enabling things to happen in our lives. And that's where you see, when you achieve certain things, you start to think that you can do this. I think the goal is to go back and say, actually, God enabled me to do this. Because of what? He what's that bigger purpose, right? So this is a stepping stone to a bigger purpose that God. So why did God give me this access to all these people and relationships, and why did I come back to Malaysia and we did this big transformation? I mean, I did this transformation work that enabled me, that was replicated by the Malaysian government. They looked at it and said, oh, this is great, come and advise us. So why did God do that? Because I think ultimately it's not that is the success, it's that you have that influence. It's that success is because later down the road, God is preparing for something else, and you will need access to it. Just like Moses, you will need to understand how Pharaoh thinks. You need access. So Pharaoh won't meet anybody, but this is Pharaoh's son, right? So you go there and like, okay, I have to meet Moses, right? But all those things God has prepared. And God gives you milestones in your life so that you can achieve that bigger purpose of that ultimately is to glorify God, right? And we forget, we think it's because we did it. And that's where it becomes dangerous. And that's where it becomes idle, because we start to worship success, and we start to think, okay, I need to do this again and again and again and again and again. And to me, that's that's where, rather than saying, okay, here's my purpose, and say, why am I successful here? Because we always, when we look at success, we never ask why we are successful. When we fail, we do post-mortem. Why don't we do a success mortem and say, why did we succeed? Because sometimes you see, you succeed because of luck. It's got nothing to do with you. It's got divine intervention that enable you to succeed. But we never, success always, we all somehow did it.
Yeah.
Fail, what's the economy it's bad, this, that. We got a lot of reasons for post-mortem, but we never do a post-success or post-mortem on success.
Yeah.
But when you start to do that, and I've done that a few times, why did I was successful? Then I realized, how did I get my scholarship out of the blue? There. Then suddenly I get to work for GE, the biggest company in the country. I'm like, what has that got to do with me? I just happen to have a scholarship in a place. The office, my school is really near to the GE headquarters. And I happen to throw an internship letter there because it's the nearest. I mean, my counselor said throw around and you happen, and somehow, so it's like, it's not like I did something, because if I was sitting in some small town got a scholarship in a small town in US, I probably won't be working for that organization. So you start to say, it's nothing to do with me. It's not like I'm so great. It's because God has placed you, and He already planned this and said, I need to get you there so that you get there, so that you get this experience, so that you come back here and do this, right? And when we do a success mortem or post-mortem of success, we start to realize that actually God is driving it. And so sometimes we get so upset about failure. Maybe God is driving it because He wants to teach you a point. My son recently broke his ankle playing volleyball, and then it became splattered, and they had to take out the bone and a few other things. I'm thinking, why is this happening to a young boy? Then I'm like, okay, maybe God wants him to sit in his room, start thinking about God. and so you don't know why certain things happen, good and bad happen, partly because God has a plan and got a will. And I think we need to understand that. I think when we do, and we understand our purpose, we will start to be able to have real great adventures with God.
Well, I think it's a very great reminder. I mean, not only knowing our purpose, but how to see success from God's perspective. Look at that. It's not about ourselves, right? It's about God and how He accomplish it through our life.
Correct.
Through our life,
and we cannot be contented unless we have God's view. Because even if you achieve something, you won't be happy one. You're not contented.
You're right. Yeah.
So success is like drugs. You take a bit, you feel happy a bit. Then after that, you need more. You need more. So success is like that. I need more. Real contentment comes when you say, okay lah, I succeed, I feel okay, but God lah, I live for you. You tell me lah. I'm like, okay, whatever. Bad things happen. I mean, we so many bad things always happen all the time, even in Christian work, right? I mean, recently we had some bad things happen at in our own work that we do, the GLS work. But my view, and I was telling the team, I'm like, hey, God has a bigger plan, right? So let's just chill and say, look, let's accept what has happened and just move on and figure it out. So it's not just if you're in Christian ministry or good things only happen. It happens all the time to everyone, right? But if we have elevate ourselves and say, what's the bigger picture? And if we trust that God is in control, then what's there to worry about? Then just be content.
I'm very curious about this. Maybe you can share with us more. How do you come to this point? I mean, when that you feel contented, that and really see from God's perspective.
I think it's a learning journey.
Learning journey.
Because I think initially, when I first started out, I was told I was one of the top 100 guys in GE. I'm going to become CEO of GE. So straight away, you're like, wow. But I think as I interacted, I had an opportunity to interact with the CEO of GE, Jeff Immelt, especially when I was running the Asia pieces. And I started to say, do I want that? And isn't there a bigger picture than running an organization to make money? There must be more, right? And as you start questioning, and then I fainted, on one of my trips to China, I fainted in front of our customer. And, on the trip back, I'm thinking. I'm like, what's God telling about myself, health, and all this? I mean, so many questions will start to permeate. And then you start to take one step at a time. You say, okay, let me go by faith and leave my job. And do something. Which I feel God at that time called me.
So you left that?
I left GE, I left Johnson. I was actually in Johnson & Johnson as a global head. And I decided with nothing to start our social enterprise. Right? And of course, there's no money because obviously when you leave a job and you start from scratch, and all my friends say, no problem, we'll support you. But the reality is, the moment you leave, you go there, nobody supports you. Right? You really have to start from scratch, right?
Wow.
But then you question God, hey, sure or not? Even today, right? I'm like 17 years in or 16 years in, right? Hey, still we got cash flow zero problem. Still we got this. I'm like, really, God, why they do this again? But then you start to pull back and say, hey, okay, you know, the last 16 years, somehow He's helped you make it to this point. Why is He not going to help you make it to the next point? He will, right? I mean, there's a verse in Matthew that talks about even your hairs of your head, He knows, right? And He feeds the birds and the ravens. Why wouldn't He take care of you? You are much more precious in the sight of God than many others, right? And this is not something I think you get as a young person straight away, because there is too many, there's so much noise all over the world. The noise of achievement, the noise of success, everything you see on Insta is about success. It's about, look at me, I can dress, I can do this, and everything is pushing you towards wanting to have that life. And you need to start to be given, and I think to me sometimes it's God lessons lah. The lessons that God give you to humble you, to push you down, to make you submissive, to make you figure out, is there a bigger purpose, to question. And I start to realize that many 30, 40-year-olds start to, hey, come to me. They always say, hey, I try to look for meaning, I want to work for you. I'm like, okay, but pray longer, God, talk to Him and figure out the bigger purpose. Because no problem, we can work something out. But maybe God has a bigger purpose for you in your workplace. Maybe it's in the job that you're in. Not necessarily meaning has to be working in an NGO or outside. Maybe God has some meaning for you in your church. Maybe God has some meaning for you. You have to take that time to explore. And Idris Jala, I don't know, he's so Idris, we talk on and off, and one of the things he told me many years ago, I think this was about 20 years ago, he said when he first got the Malaysia Airlines job, and he didn't know, should I leave Shell for it? And he said, okay, he took 2 weeks off, and he just prayed and swim, and and finally he said, okay, I think God is calling me here. And to me, that is indication of whether something aligns with a bigger purpose. And I think sometimes we won't know what our bigger purpose is. And we waddle. But at some point in time, I think God will make it clear to us. And if we keep asking God, please show me, I think at some point He will.
I think I really be encouraged by what you share. I mean, when it comes to decision making, seeking for next direction, you mentioned that you really seek God and really understand what God wants you to do. But at the time, maybe not sure, right? But you still go by faith and how God have led you throughout this journey. Definitely, there's no, guarantee, no failures or challenges. But how do you navigate it and continue focus on Him, right? To achieve what you are doing right now. Thank you so much. I think this is very important. Sometimes we forget that, we take for granted. We thought that we only pray for the sake of ministry, but even our life, I mean, the career path, we need to continue to seek Him and to understand His purpose.
Ideally from young, right? I mean, you inculcate our kids that they need to walk with God at a very early age.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, Roshan, can you share with how do you avoid those idols and what is your advice?
Yeah, I think the starting point is to recognize those idols.
Okay.
Right? I think many times we go through life and we just assume life is life, right? And we forget that little things can become idols. Netflix can become an idol, And we talk about those. We talk about TV. We talk about the way that we procrastinate. But we sometimes don't talk about the good stuff that can become idols. Too much of a good thing can become idol. Achievement is one. Achievement is great.
Yes.
I mean, in churches, we're always looking for young people that wants to drive things and has initiative and so on. But when that initiative is not matched with purpose, when it's initiative that is self-driven, right? And it's not related to a bigger purpose, then you're starting to get into the field of idolatry. You're starting to say, okay, this is about me. This is not about God's purpose.
Yes.
But when you see initiative matched with God's purpose, you see amazing things. And to me, Wawasan Penabo is one of those. When we started it, was just, I was frustrated because in my church, we have not enough content in Bahasa Malaysia. And when we did an inventory, there's about 150 Bahasa books. But all of them were devotional, like, reflections and devotional. I'm like, where's the sound teaching in Bahasa? And so we started, my church, every month we'll translate one book and then we'll sit together, we translate, at that time the EMS Bible courses, we'll translate it and then we'll say, okay, here's a book on baptism, here's a book on this. And so the deeper. And then when I met a couple of folks, Bob, Theo, Elvina, and a few others, they all say, hey, this is an interesting dilemma, we should solve it together. And so they brought in people and we prayed about it, and one thing led to another and led to Wawasan Penabo. And then Wawasan Penabo for the last probably maybe 15 years now has just grown exponentially. And to me, it's not like any of us driving it. This is the power of God saying this is needed in our country. Thank you for starting with that vision of wanting to push your frustration, which was driven by God, probably.
Yep.
And then somehow the ability to know many people, which I had accumulated because of my corporate side, to be able to have conversations with some of these guys and say, hey, let's put one and one together, and boom, Wowson Penabo was birthed, right? I mean, the things that God puts you, the wealth, the influence, the authority, all these things God give you. But God has a purpose why He's given you this. And when most people don't realize that this can be used for that glory, which has to align with the purpose.
Yes.
But when you say I have authority and just use authority without aligning with purpose, when I take my wealth and my money and don't align it with purpose, nothing moves, right? And ultimately you say, oh, I'm like, I always believe this, that there are 4 stages of Christian life. Number one is, and I followed Moses, right? So the first stage was, I'm in Israel, I'm a slave. And then you cross the Red Sea. And the same with us, we cross our sea of blood, Jesus' blood, right? And you accept Christ, right? Then you end up where? You're a free person, you're not a slave, but you're purposeless. Because your purpose is actually to go to Canaan, but they cannot see that purpose. For 40 years they just wander around with it. Most Christians are stuck there. We are purposeless. We wander around our wilderness. And they die, They die just like the Jews died without fulfilling their purpose. And God said, never mind, next generation. So God said, if you don't want to fulfill your purpose, next I wait. The next generation say, hey, I know my purpose. But before they go, there's step 3, which is I must make a commitment to live my purpose, which is why they put 12 stones. And then they cross the Jordan. That's another thing. So 2 crossings, One Red Sea, which is, okay, I accept Christ. The second crossing, I must commit to live my purpose. And to me, I think many Christians, we forget the second commitment. And so that's why we have so many idols in our life. Because we have to take over something to give us purpose. So these idols become our purpose. Instead of that. What's the purpose? Conquer Canaan. Very clear. Never mind, achievement, this, that, and so on and so forth. Now. So to me, I feel that my narrative is always about four things. Then when you go there, you conquer. Last few verses of Joshua says, and they rested. Okay, then you can rest. And then you're happy. And to me, that's retirement, right? You have done what God asked you to do, right? But, I see, I think about 80% of Christians they stuck in the wilderness.
I think because this word purpose you keep repeating in your sharing, maybe you can share with us, how do you find your purpose? How do you find purpose?
So I think what happens is God will give you different experiences.
I see.
And what you need to do is, every time that you have the experience, ask God, how is this experience and what does that mean in terms of what you want me to do? And I think as you continue to ask God, God will slowly start to reveal that. For me, it was very slow. Right? And for me, it was accidental, because when I was running businesses. And then suddenly I felt, when I came back to Malaysia, I felt a calling that I don't want to run business anymore. I want to do something different. And then I went for a training course. And then I saw the trainer teach like that. I said, hey, that was not bad. So then I said, maybe I should do that.
Okay.
So then I went to GA and said, I want to be, doing something different. Okay. Something related to training. Or then he's like, actually, there's a job open. And then I said, oh, really? Okay. And it just led me down the path of becoming, the head of learning for GE at that time. And then later I went to Johnson & Johnson to be the global head of talent, right? Yes. And to me, that transition, right? Not many business leaders, and people say you're crazy, right? You are on a business leader track. You're going to run, you go to this backwater track. But to me, I think that reveal came slowly. And because of that, ultimately I got involved in teaching. That's how I got teaching the government and others, right? And as I started doing that, I realized, hey, this is something I want to do. I want to build around, which is then how I said I want to teach in church. I want to teach. I mean, there's other things like that. So you slowly get there. But I think you need to be constantly asking God.
Yes. Okay. So the very key thing is to continue to seek Him.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time, and also really see from His view what He wants me to learn right now from these experiences and opportunities.
Right.
Wow. So, Sean, can you share how can we pursue holiness in success?
Yeah. I think part of it is once we align with God's will, right? Then our goal is to continue to build our spiritual life, continue to walk with God, because it's easy to get derailed, especially when we are aligned, when we understand God's will to our lives. Satan will continue want to derail us. Because we are powerful already, you know.
Yep.
We have Holy Spirit, we have power, we have alignment. Wow, we can achieve a great deal for the Lord, right? So I think that's where our spiritual life has to be really taken care of. I think the other piece is we must continue to serve others. We must continue to say, you know, our goal is to continue to be of service. And I think if we can do those things relatively well, we should be able to continue to push forward and achieve what God wants us to achieve. And even if we don't, again, maybe God sometimes gives us a big picture and say, we want to get to there. Like Moses, I want you to get to Canaan.
Yes.
But maybe God says, okay, Moses, enough, pass to Joshua.
Okay.
And to me is that, you know, when you serve others, when you help others, when you empower others, when you build others up, you know, the Joshuas of the world will come over and take over and say, okay, you know, take it. I named my son Joshua. Partly it's like, okay, maybe, you know, because I thought, you know, part of mine was to drive change in Malaysia. And I said, maybe I cannot achieve it. Maybe I'll just get up there, you know, but slowly get there. Maybe I won't even cross the Jordan, right? But maybe my son, maybe the next generation will be the Joshua generation. And maybe my generation is to do something, you know, in a certain effect. So I feel that alignment with God's will and being clear about that. And then secondly, you know, start to make sure your spiritual life is sound. Make sure you continue to build your spiritual life and don't derail yourself. And then finally keep serving others.
So there's no shortcut. I think it's very important to continue.
Yeah, and I think if you do that, you know, a lot of people say, hey, why you got so much energy, this and that. Like, it's not me, God, right? Because if you align, right, nothing, you're always bubbly, you sick also, nothing, you know, let's brush it off and let's go, right? Because I think when you're purpose driven, right, it's very hard for people to derail you because you will find extra energy. People who are very purpose-driven will somehow be able to find crazy sense of resources, energy. They will see things that other people cannot see. They will see opportunities that others never see because they're very clear. I want to get to this part. It's like when you buy a new car, you got a certain number plate. Somehow you notice that everybody got similar number plate. I mean the numbers as you want. Why? Because you're very focused on those numbers, and so you see things. So when you focus on your mission, what God asks you to do, right, you see a lot of things that others cannot see because you're saying, I want to get to this mission. What must I do? Wow, I can see all these things. Okay, great. And that's how God uses people. He says, actually, the things are out there. My power, the Holy Spirit is there. My resources are there. My ability is there. And, you know, so I say, wow, so actually, there's a lot of Christian money. There's a lot of resources. There's a lot of funds. But we somehow are not able to see it, tap into it. But when you align with the purpose, and you go out there and say, who are people aligned with this purpose? Wow, you suddenly find people that says, okay, I also want to commit. And I also want to help the Sabah-Sabakians and so on and so forth. Right? So that alignment actually energizes you and gives you a lot of power.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So maybe what are some questions that you want to let the audience to reflect after we have listened to your sharing about success?
Yes. So really I have two questions. The first one is really on idolatry, right? And I think it's a starting point. In what areas of your life has success become an idol, replacing your dependence on God, right? So to me, that's the first question. Then the second question is more purpose. How do you have you found your purpose? And how do you align this purpose with what God wants you to do? And then how do you make sure you ensure that this purpose is fulfilled? I think if you ask this question, you are then able to construct for your life a sort of plan at a high level, because God actually has many twists and turns but God will bring in new twists and turns to turn you. But at least I think God's put me in Malaysia to drive certain things. I think God's put me in this school, put me in this, and your purpose can be temporal, it can be long term, right? So temporal in the school for the next 3 years. What is that big purpose in your university? I mean, when I was in university, why God brought me to university? Actually, I didn't tell you this, but I got a scholarship from a cult called the Moonies. Right? I didn't know that until I went there. So it was given by the Unification Church. So I go there and meet Reverend Sang Moon. And this university in the US, right? And I'm like, God, why you bring me to Babylon? I mean, literally, right? So I say, God so the next 4 years, I think God has a purpose. And so the next 4 years, I spent really talking to many of these kids who were in Unification, mostly Koreans and Japanese. And many of them come to know Christ. We started a Christian fellowship. So I'm like, God put me there for a reason. And it happened that now I know many people all over the world because somehow they give 10 scholarships to 160 countries, right? Each country get 10. So got 1,600 international kids from 160 countries. Suddenly I know 160 country students, right? Why is God giving me access to these 160 countries? So, you kind of ask these questions later. But when I'm there, I'm like, oh, that's my temporal mission. And then you come, what's your next mission? What's the bigger mission that God's preparing you for life? But I think in each space that you are, God's giving you a mission, right? So if you do that, ask those questions. What's my mission today here? What's my bigger mission? I think God will answer you.
Okay, wow. So can I say that I think our ultimate purpose is to glorify God and enjoy Him. And in the different season of life, there's a reason or purpose why God put you here right now in these communities, in this area, that He wants to use you so that you can glorify Him and enjoy Him in every moment of your life. Can I say
it is. But I think the reality is that just like Moses, right? He's so frustrated with the children of Israel. God put him there, but he gets so frustrated all the time. Right? So I think the reality is that we cannot say that the entire life is going to be enjoyment. We're going to be frustrated like Moses. We will have frustration points. We will have, why God, why you do this, right? But I think what we need to do is learn to release. And this helps us. So this helps us live longer. So because we get less stress, right? Okay. Your problem, God. This is your problem. Right? I don't know why you do this. Your problem. But I'm going to continue and I'm going to stay firm. But I think if you have a philosophy of saying God will deal with it, not mine to deal with. Wow, we lower our stress levels, and then we can really enjoy. Because we cannot enjoy when we are stressed up. We cannot enjoy when we are frustrated. We cannot enjoy when we are boiling. And that's what God was trying to tell Moses. Hey, you sin by being angry. And so because of that, don't go into the promised land, right? So God is like, look, when you're frustrated, it's okay, I'm in control. Let it go, right? And I think that, the reality is, yes, enjoy. But the real thing is that you're going to be frustrated, but don't worry about it. Right?
Definitely. Well, I think it's such an honor that to have listened to your sharing, your journey. So before we end, any words of encouragement from you to our audience?
I think the Christian life is. I think God's planted with us a life that can be meaningful and can be purposeful. And I think what we need to do is acknowledge that God has a real purpose for us. All in the Bible it says each of us are different parts of the body. So some of us are going to be the legs and the hands and the nice parts. But the little thumb, you also need it sometimes to dig your ear and do other things. Every part plays a significant role, right? And to me, if you can figure out what that role is and play it really well, I think the body of Christ will grow in a significant way. So to me, it's about doing your part and fulfilling God's mission for you.
Okay. So fulfill our parts and focus on what the missions God has given to us. Thank you, Roshan, for your sharings and your insights and also your experiences. And I think the most important part is I really enjoy that, in a sense, when you discover more about God, what He's going to do in your life, I think I can feel the excitement. Even though you mentioned there are a lot of difficulties, challenges along the journey, but I think the purpose has continued to drive you to focus on what God wants you to achieve. So thank you for watching this video. If it's helpful to you, I would like to encourage you to share this video with your friends or someone that you think need this. And stay with us, and we have this another series or topic that we can share with you. Thank you. Bye.
If you liked our sharing just now, like this video or share it with your friends. If you'd like to check out more of our content, do subscribe to our YouTube channel or watch back our previous videos here. Thank you for watching. Bye.